The biggest thing that I ran into when I first started cosplaying that frustrated the daylights out of me was I would see something. I would see a character, and we're gonna use one of my cosplays that I don't talk about that often because I wasn't happy with it, and that was Deathstroke. I did a Deathstroke cosplay back in the day. If you go onto my YouTube channel and check my performances, I did do a performance on the stage of Fan Expo back in the day, and I did not plan this cosplay well. And that is the first thing I want to talk about is you have to make sure to plan things accordingly. I remember seeing a toy of Deathstroke or it was a toy. No, it was the New 52 Deathstroke comic book. That's what it was. And I saw it and I just went, cool, let's make it. And as I said at the beginning, there wasn't a lot of tutorials out there. Like nowadays, if there's a character that has seen any type of medium, a comic book, a video game, anything, and if you like that character, you can probably go online and find someone who has cosplayed that, or at least can show you things that they've done. I did not have that chance, so I saw this comic and was like, cool, go. And Pretty Nerd Crystal said, wait, I shouldn't be winging it like I always do. There's winging it, and then there's what I did. So I know we've talked while we've been working on stuff, and I know what you mean by winging it. Me winging it, well, let's back up. Crystal is a seamstress, whatever you want to call it. She uses patterns. Like she will go find a pattern for a dress or a skirt or something like that, and she will use that pattern and lay it out and cut her pieces. I, on Deathstroke, looked at the cosplay and went, cool, where's my foam? I didn't even use a paper pattern. I just went and grabbed whatever foam I had and I started cutting out all the pieces that I thought I needed. And at the time, the foam that's available now where you can get in the rolls and different thicknesses, that wasn't available back then. I had floor mats and that's it. So I went with my enthusiasm and I started cutting up floor mats, realizing not until I did my first test fit, which wasn't a test fit, it was just I finished the piece. The thing was huge on me and it was bulky, way too bulky. But at that point, after I've already cut up 3-4 floor mats and put a whole bunch of time and effort into it, I couldn't really say no. I couldn't really be like, not gonna do it. So if you're in the cosplay world now and you want to start building something with foam, make sure to use some guide. Whether you make it yourself, whether you're buying a pattern from somebody, whether you're finding ones free online, wherever, plan your things out early, plan your things out first before you start cutting into your foam. Plan everything out on paper specifically. I have taken a bunch of patterns and I've created a few of my own. They're in the other room because I'm building my new cosplay. I'm then going to take those paper patterns. Once I've made sure they kind of fit pretty good, I'm then going to put them onto like the Bristol board that you used to get when you were a kid and you're doing big posters. Buy a couple sheets of that, lay them down, cut out all your patterns in the Bristol board. Then you can lay it on yourself and tape it properly without the tape ripping the paper. And you can kind of get a feel for your sizing and how it's going to feel and look when you make it out of foam. This is the easiest way to get a feel without, going too deep into the foam. When you get to that foam, however, remember this is something I tell everybody if you're ever working with foam for the first time. If you are doing something that has any thickness to it, how do you allow for thickness? Thank you, Dave. It's like you knew I was going there. Yeah, so this is a more advanced thing. So once you lay your paper pattern on, it may feel good, but then you get into things like thickness. If you lay something on yourself and a 2mm foam is going to sit a lot different than a 10mm foam. So what you're going to do is if you're going to use something like a floor mat, you may notice the floor mats have like those puzzle pieces on the side, and it has the strip on the edges. Or if you're buying it in rolls, cut out a strip about yay long or about yay thick. Make yourself a ruler out of that foam. That way you can lay it on yourself and see what that thickness is going to look like. I have a couple in the other room for different thicknesses. The 2mm, not really, but once I get to 5, I've got a 5 and I've got a 10 that kind of gives you that thickness. So check out online if you don't understand what I'm talking about. Foam rulers for cosplay, those help you understand the thicknesses of the foam, because yes, 2mm thick versus 10mm thick is a big difference. It could go from this to this. So make sure to prep that stuff properly. Another thing on here I put in my notes, because this is one I always bring up. It's not foam related, but it's kind of foam related. I remember back in the day, I wanted to make a Power Ranger helmet. I wanted to make a White Ranger Power Ranger helmet, and I should have known when I was building this that it was the wrong thing to do, but I was watching a guy do a tutorial, and the way he built it was he built the frame out of cardboard, which looked great. He duct taped, kind of all the pieces, because it wasn't one solid piece. It was a couple different pieces. Duct taped them together. And then he used Bondo to get the shape, because Bondo, if you've never used it, it is a malleable substance that you usually used on cards, and you can smooth it out and sand it out. I made this helmet out of cardboard and Bondo, and again, didn't prep properly. This helmet was about this big and had about that thick of Bondo over the entire thing. I clearly remember being on our apartment balcony, sanding like mad to get this thing to look right. And finally, after about a week, my wife comes out and she's like, "You're never going to get this the way you want. Just throw it out." And it was hard to throw out after a week of just sitting out there sanding, trying to get it as smooth as possible. It was such a waste. But again, should have prepped properly, should not have jumped in as much as I did. Rado said, Bondo fixes everything. If it doesn't, you are not using enough. That's honestly what it felt like, where I just was like, I'll just keep layering it on. See, I did that with my Ranger helmet, but fiberglass stuff. Yeah, I wasn't getting into fiberglass. JS asked me about that the one time. He's like, "You ever done fiberglass?" I'm like, no way in hell am I going down there. Point number 2, using the wrong foam. We kind of talked about this just a few minutes ago. Really kind of seeing what the thickness of the foam is going to feel like, because as I've said over in a couple other videos talking about foam, if you are hard off and you don't know where to source your foam and you don't understand thicknesses and stuff, you may jump right to the foam mats because that's the easiest thing available. That's what I did. I know several other cosplayers who've done that as well. I get it, and I understand the ease of it. However, it doesn't always work out as well as you hoped. Big thing again, the structure may look kind of bulky. Another thing that people don't think about especially until they get to a convention, breathability. There is a big difference in breathability between a 2mm and a 10mm. If you're in a 2mm cosplay, 2mm foam, 4mm foam, it ain't that bad to walk around. You walk around covered in 10mm foam, you are gonna get so warm so fast, which is another thing that I tell everybody. If you're ever building foam cosplays, if you're ever doing something with a lot of foam, do not just test fit your cosplay in your house. Go onto your balcony. Go into your backyard. If you want to, and I highly recommend it, I know some people don't like it, walk around your neighborhood.